Going through the battle, a lot of stuff happened. I love to talk about and answer questions and really utilize what I went through to connect with somebody else and hopefully share where I can learn more with them how to battle better as I move forward to continue to battle cancer, and also how to impact somebody else from what I learned that somebody else may never have experienced. Currently, right now, we are in chemotherapy. This was this week, we had blood labs done. I go down on a regular basis and get blood labs and kind of get checked up, make sure that everything's going well. And the labs were the best I've ever had since the beginning of the cancer battle, which is a miracle to me. Along the way, I was told more than once that I would have diabetes for the rest of my life, that I would have kidney failure, and eventually I'd be on dialysis, that my liver was failing from all the chemotherapy that I did, that I would need a pacemaker. My heart function was at one point below 20%, and just lots of stuff that I went through that a lot of people have not survived, and I was fortunate to survive. I feel like on one hand, I'm the luckiest person in the world. There's time and chance, or maybe it's a miracle. Maybe that God is real. My search of God and my message that He chose me to go through this battle in this manner is to show that He is real. So anyways, I hope to talk to anybody on the podcast too, bringing people from all sorts of beliefs. I love talking about that. I think that politics and religion are avoided sometimes, and of course we don't want to beat a dead horse and talk about it too much, but a little bit here and there, sprinkle in some politics and religion and talk about it with respect to one another. I am not religious. I got my beliefs. We do church at home. I love the idea of during church together as a family and just hanging out and just talking about stuff. The Bible says where 2 or 3 are gathered, there I am with them. So that's all I'm going to say on the Bible on this part. Going through these treatments and achieving this world record. The world record was set by, I believe his name is David Hoon, and he had 55 chemos done, and there's a lot of different types of chemos, and he had 55 basically chemo infusions, and then he passed on. So when I entered the world record, when the Guinness Book of World Records was still counting these maybe 3 years ago or so, I think I was at 222 or something like that chemo infusions, and now I'm around 250 something, and the majority of these chemos that I did were the highest types of chemos. There's probably about 300 different kinds of chemos out there. What is chemotherapy? It is a medicine that is used to fight cancer, and there's a lot of different types of them. A huge amount, more than people realize, they are derived from plants. The chemo before this that I did for about 1.5 years was derived from the spleen of a rabbit. The rabbit was not harmed. I don't know who comes up with this stuff, but it helped me survive. Currently, right now, it is, I would say definitely in the last year overall, has been the healthiest I've been in 10 years. And a lot of that I attribute to my wife, Ara, and to the support of my kids and my family. And my family, when I say that, means my friends. Especially recently in the last couple months, I've entered into a new community that I dreamed about entering, and it just was beyond what I can imagine. Through my battle, I've always been interested in fighting. Anybody that knows me knows that I love any kind of boxing, mixed martial arts, and I studied combat and fighting throughout my whole battle on a deep level. Anything I could hear, I would soak it up. I'd soak up what it was like to enter into the octagon to fight. I'd soak up what historically troops did to prepare for combat from around the world. Whatever I could find, I'd try to implement that into my fight against cancer. My neighbor, her name is Hope. A few years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I was coming off of a transplant, bone marrow transplant. That's usually one of the most difficult things any human can go through. It is like having a heart transplant, kidney transplant, brain transplant, I don't know, going through a car accident and a whole bunch of other things all at the same time. And it's It's incredibly difficult, and there's different types of transplant. The last one I went through was just pure torture for the most part, and a very difficult recovery where I can never imagine working harder than that in my life, which makes working hard on things a little bit easier now. So it's a gift. I see it as a gift. I'm very grateful for that time. Thankfully, it has passed, and I'm a lot better now. But I met Hope at the swimming pool here where we live. We live in a cottage community in Peoria, Arizona. Came across Hope, who was battling breast cancer, very serious stage 4 breast cancer, and we mutually encouraged one another over. And when I first met her at the time, I was probably 60 pounds lighter, fingernails falling off, no hair. That's how I probably spent 6 years of my life for the last 8 or 9 years. I spent a lot of time in the hospital, hundreds of days in the hospital in isolated care, and where I couldn't go outside, and I just, even at home, I had to kind of live in a bubble, because and I was still learning, if I was not careful, I could contract whatever was out there, and I'd end up with pneumonia. I think I had pneumonia, very serious pneumonia, and sometimes multiple pneumonias over 20 times, and I had over 80 very serious viruses. Like, when I would get a virus, it would just become a battle against pneumonia. So I met Hope, and then recently, probably 4 months ago, I connected with her again, and she's like, "Oh, you're looking so healthy." And she told me about her son-in-law, Kelly. And I ended up connecting with Kelly, and he invited me to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu mixed martial arts gym that is owned by Tim Welch. I didn't really know who that, I'd kind of seen him maybe over time because I watch mixed martial arts all the time, and he is the coach of Sugar Sean O'Malley, who I had seen, I think, his first fight on TV when he was on Dana White's The Contender Series, and Snoop Dogg went crazy over his walk-off knockout performance. And so I checked out this place, and I was like, is this too much for me? Is this going to end up putting me in the hospital? I don't know what I'm getting into. But it turned out to just be the most beautiful, awesome fit of all time. Ara's training there. The kids are kind of training there when it's not open right now, but when it is open, and we do private trainings and things like that. But it's just been an amazing group, just an amazing community, an extended community that studies jiu-jitsu, striking, anything mixed martial arts, and the way they're doing.
At this point, I was interrupted by a phone call, so I transferred over with emphasis, and the way they're going about it.
Spectacular. It's a group of people who are dedicated to learning together, to reading the latest trends and how to optimize the mind, how to optimize the body, and all of that fitting together. So just awesome stuff. I'm just very grateful to be a part of it all. What else was I going to talk about? I forgot. What should I talk about? You got any ideas?
I think you should tell first what kind of cancer you had.
I got you. Okay. All right. So the kind of cancer I had originally was Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is very curable up front. It's a rough treatment up front. It's a very rough chemo, but depending on the stage, it's anywhere from 4 months to 8 months. And something like 90% of people get cured from that point. And maybe 98%, if you do a little more chemo past that, you're cured. So I fell into that 2%. And then if you don't get cured from that point, you enter into another high dose chemo and then into a bone marrow transplant. From that point on, like 99.9999% people get cured. So then it just kept going and it kept going. And now I'm in a place where I have not met anybody else in the world. There's no book or there's no guideline or protocol that you can follow that is developed. So my doctor and I are just kind of rolling together. I compare notes with cancer patients from around the world, medical staff. I've developed a network. My doctor consults with other doctors that are of highly specialized care. And my doctor and I have an awesome relationship where I believe she really listens to me. So we kind of work together, and nobody is really leading it. Sometimes I say to her, this is a tough decision, can you make it? So that's happened, and I'm just incredibly grateful for the entire team. I'm under bone marrow transplant care at Virginia Piper, and that's become like my second family. And along the way, I think over life, I probably have a black belt in the hacking of the body, or what is the mechanics behind the body. Also maybe a black belt in cancer, battling cancer. So for example, I could walk into a clinic where patients are being treated, look at the nurses, look at the doctors, and just assess exactly like what's going on a pretty deep level, which has really helped me and encouraged me and motivated me to continue. One of my favorite things to do is to connect with cancer patients who are earlier in their battle and be an encouragement to them. And especially there's, when you begin, if you're told that you might die and you're going to go through crazy treatments and there's not good chance of survival, you can be frozen. You can be frozen into anxiety, depression, overwhelmed with fear, all sorts of things you can imagine. So it's just been tremendous to be an encouragement to that type of patient and caretakers who are equally in it as well, and to watch them come out of it. And it's very, very evident to me when you're going through a tough time, the worst thing you can do is isolate yourself. The worst thing you can do is be stuck in hopelessness. And we've all experienced that time of hopelessness where it doesn't seem like time moves at all, and you're just stuck in time. You're just outside of time and space, and it's not moving. It seems like tick goes by every hour. Those are tough times. How can we get to hope? You can't just say hope and go. You have to make an effort. You have to take steps. So that's some things I'd like to talk about on the podcast as well. And if you're wondering right now, some basics you can do is, one, you can move, you can stand up. You can go from the posture of hopelessness and immediately move to a posture of hope. Put on that big, cheesy, crazy smile on your face, put your arms up, and just say, thanks that I'm alive, thanks for this day. You can take a walk, you can move, you can simulate walking, you can work on your breathing, you can read a book about how to optimize your health or your mind. You can reach out to somebody. I cannot recommend that enough. If somebody were to reach out to you right now and said, I'm having a tough time, wouldn't you be there for them? So does everybody else. So reach out to somebody else. And then the other thing is help somebody else. There's nothing better than to be able to give to somebody else, to help somebody else that's having a tough time when you're battling. If it's overwhelming to you and you can take the focus onto helping somebody else, and contact me or look for ways, get creative about ways you can help. Sometimes you may be too sick and all you can do is get on your phone and send somebody an encouraging message, but you can really do a lot just with those words. Where I am with my cancer, it is terminal. It's a subtype of a subtype probably, so they haven't really identified it exactly yet. They, just medical professionals and patients and whatever, haven't identified how to treat it. So there is no cure. That is why it's called terminal. I have had many times in my life where I'm not expected to live and people are ready to say goodbye to me and things like that. And I've been teetering on life and death quite a bit. And I learned over time, at any moment, anything can happen. At any moment, people pass, they move on. So from that, it's easy to become filled with anxiety and fear, but we can't let that happen to us, because if we do, we've already made our battle much more difficult. So we must step forward and defeat fear. I took fear out of my vocabulary early on in my battle. And it doesn't mean that fear doesn't nip at my heels. Sometimes it nips at my heels, but I refuse to acknowledge the fear. I refuse to let it go into my mind. I refuse to say that I am in fear. Whether you believe God will help or not in that situation, if you go to Him and you love and you reach out, or if you just follow those steps, you can eliminate fear. You have the ability to eliminate fear from your life. So I've been through all sorts of torture in the years, and right now my torture has been fairly minimal compared to the other years. Right now the things that I battle is I do my chemo at nighttime right now. It's the first time I've done an oral chemo. So that makes my mornings a little bit rough. I experience nausea, a little bit heavy in the mornings. Sometimes it's intermittent throughout the days. It kind of depends on the dose and what I've been doing and things. Experience dizziness, fatigue. If you've ever had cancer and you had an extensive amount of blood cancer, for example, you know that kind of fatigue I'm talking about. You can't really experience it. You can't describe it unless you're there, but it's something like being up for 3 days, awake for 3 days, and trying to just function and operate. And then there's joint pain, there's neuropathy, they call it chemo brain, where sometimes you just kind of, I don't even call it forgetting stuff necessarily, because maybe I had that before to begin with, I don't know. But it's more like you just can't connect your brain. It's like it goes zzz, 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 and it tries to connect those synapses and everything, and it just doesn't all the way. And you try to talk and you can't really get the words out to somebody and express how you want to be, or you just feel kind of like a cloud is over you and you're trying to think and stuff like that, which makes it all the better when things lift. It's just awesome. It's an awesome gift to have. You don't always want to have trials, but when you go through those trials and you live through them, and then you get to experience something awesome, oh man, it's so fun to celebrate it. So I've had many days like that. That's why I say, for myself, please don't ever feel sorry for me or anything like that. My life is awesome. I'm secure. I know where I'm going and things like that. So no sob stories or anything like that. I do like the idea of crying. I've learned over time. You hear from people that laugh. If you're struggling with cancer and you're going through tough times, just laugh. Go watch a comedy, laugh. Laugh or whatever. Okay, that could be good, but I'd say the majority of the time that I felt incredibly sick and things were very difficult and I'm just fighting for my life, basically. I'm like in a fight and I'm deep in it. You don't want to just be like, ha, 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 ha. You can kind of say, ha, 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 or do something like that, but was much more effective than laughing was crying. So I spent a good amount of time working, learning how to benefit with healing tears. Tears can be so healing. Now, you don't want to let it get out of hand and let your emotions just take you back down a path that is not productive, but having a good cry sometimes can be very healing no matter where you are in your challenge in life. That's one thing that I learned. And laugh it up as well, put on a cheesy smile, do something crazy. That will be beneficial as well. And just, there's a lot of stories that happen. There's a lot of cool stuff that happens that I hope to connect and share with people. And one of them was, at the time, my boys were, I want to say 4 and 5 or so, 3 and 4 maybe. And they're kind of in that place where they sort of understand time, but they don't, like all the way. So they're like, how long is it gonna take to this place we're going to? And if you told them 40 minutes, it's not really gonna mean the same as 2 minutes or 3 hours. It's gonna be somewhere in there. 40 minutes, that's cool, 40 minutes. And I just fell into 40 minutes for some reason, because that seemed to always just, okay, cool. So sometimes it'd be like, when's bedtime? And 40 minutes, or, how much longer is it gonna take? 40 minutes, to kind of get them into that zone. And I was in the hospital and I was actually watching a boxing match on TV in the hospital. I was hoping to get out. I was like, let me out of here. And I was kind of into this fight. Like I try to really embrace and enjoy stuff, any little thing. So if a fight came on, and I love fights, I'm just going to go way into enjoying it. They're trying to figure out what's wrong with me. I got fevers. I'm under these chemos, hooked up to all these lines and everything, and trying to watch this match. And some people come in, and that happened a lot. I was at the Mayo Clinic. They just file in and look at me and like, how's this guy alive? He's gray, looks like this. All these things are wrong with him. What the heck? And with their clipboards and everything. And so a few people filed in and they're looking at me. And I think they were ear, nose, and throat specialists or something like that. So I was like, all right, check me out. I got all sorts of sinus stuff going on, but let me watch my fight. I'm sort of in that headspace. And so they're checking me out and looking around, and I almost think the guy was a little annoyed that I was just watching the fight when he was checking me out, but come on, it'd been many days of being poked and all this kind of stuff, so I was gonna enjoy my time. So then he's like, hey, you gotta listen. So somebody's like, you gotta turn the TV down or off or whatever. I was like, okay. He's like, so it looks like you have a fungal infection. It's very serious, and we're going to go test this. We're actually waking the person up right now. I think it was like 9 at night. We came in off the clock on call ourselves, and this is very serious because somebody said that they saw we're seeing there's evidence of a fungus, very serious fungal infection with your immune system down and everything. This is something you won't survive. They said, we're going to go test for it, and it's looking like it is. And if it does, what we could do is we could start removing it, but we're going to end up removing all of the bones in your face, that side of the face, and then eventually you're not going to make it. And I was like, I was froze. And they said, I was like, how long is it going to take to get the results? And no lie, they said 40 minutes. And so I'm like, whoa, man. So I was analyzing. I think I called my best friend who's a doctor, and he's like, man, he told me the real deal of it. He just said exactly what it was, in alignment with what they had told me. I started praying. I was overwhelmed. I think I reached out for prayer, and people were praying like crazy. And man, I forgot about that fight. I don't even know who was fighting. Everything shifted. My 40 minutes of time, and it was so crazy. I went outside of time and space. I went between a wave of hope and hopelessness, and that time carried forward. And I think I just reached out and told people I loved them and things like that. And then finally they came back in, and immediately they said, it's okay. And I was like, yeah. They're like, all right, we're still gonna have to do this. I think they had even taken out some pieces of bone in my nose with no time to sedate it. So I'd been bleeding out, and that was one of the craziest experiences too. I almost forgot about that. But just the thing that stands out when you're in that mode is, hey, you're gonna be okay. We're not gonna have to do that, but you are gonna have to go through more tests because we can't figure out why you're having constant seizures and your fevers and all these things are going on with you. So we ended up finding the solution to that. It was a really rare form of pneumonia that's difficult to survive, but obviously we got through it. And what else? Well, I think I'm gonna wrap it up now. This is my shot, my best attempt at doing this. Sorry, it seems like every time I try to start this podcast, there's not the right equipment, not feeling good or something like that. So did my best here. I look forward to connecting with people however we can, man. Start your own podcast. I'll join you on your show. Come and join me on my show. And we'll just continue to grow and work together. I know I'm like, I'm the world record holder and the cancer story and things like that. But I'm really just a guy just trying to grow and get better. I'm below average. I'm so great. I don't even know how the heck. That's a whole nother miracle that I get to be married to Arabelle Hanan. She's amazing. She's an amazing woman. It's been a crazy, awesome marriage and relationship. It's coming up on 3 years that we've really been dating, I think, right? 3 years? We're on our way to 3 years. And I just love her so much. You may have heard this message, but change and growth is not possible if we're always comfortable. If we're always comfortable, we can't change and grow. So let's get a little bit uncomfortable together. Let's grow. Also, you see I got the hat with faith on. Yeah, I got faith, but where is your faith? Where is my faith? It's not always perfect. And there's a Bible verse that says, faith without works is dead. If we don't work hard, if we don't move forward, faith's gone. There's no faith. We can't even claim faith if we're not putting the work in, if we're not loving people, connecting with people, being open, all those things that Jesus said, represented. If we're not following what God wants and thinking about ourselves all the time, then what was the thing I was on? What was it, babe? What was I talking about? Faith. So you can go along with everything and say you got faith, but if you don't put the work in, it's gone. So let's work together and build our faith to optimize health, optimize our lives, and just love one another. Thank you so much for listening, for watching. Love you guys. Take care.